Hi people, welcome to the channel. Now some of you have asked me how I find the motivation to get out and run long miles or the mental strength to keep covering big distances over many days. When you're a bit beaten up, how do you get up and go again? So in this video I thought I'd share the mental trickery I use to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Now I'm not a sports psychologist, so I can't promise these are all 100% valid for everyone, but they work for me. I've learned them over years and years of running, and I also think it's really important to point out that going further might be doing a quarter of a mile more, it might be running 3 times in a week instead of 2, but building mental resilience isn't about aiming for big numbers necessarily, it's about pushing your own limits in a sensible, steady and controlled way. Now with that in mind, I hope in the next 10 minutes or so there's something in this video that can help you go further than you thought you could. So let's get into it. So the first one is to chunk it up. This is an obvious one. Breaking runs down into manageable bites is highly effective, but here's something I've learned about how to do it. How big or small you make the bites can be really important, and it will depend on the distance you're tackling about how you go about it. You want to tap into the sense that you're making progress, build momentum, but you don't want to feel overwhelmed by how many bites you have to take to get there. For example, it's not much use ticking off single miles at the very start of a 100-mile ultra. You're better off working to aid stations or even looking at moving for a certain number of hours. Now when I ran the Danube, sometimes running 30 miles a day, I'd aim to tick along at 5 miles per hour, and I tried to do 20 miles by 10 a.m. each day. Why? Well, that's when I knew when my son would be having breakfast back home in the UK, so I'd try and get those miles done and stop then, get something to eat and call him, knowing I just had 2 hours left after that to run 10 miles. Chunking it up this way gave me a good target for morning momentum. It also gave me a reward that acted like a reset, and I knew after I had a more familiar distance left, just 2 hours of running. How often during your runs do you find yourself having that non-stop internal debate about whether you can actually make it this time? I do a lot. I used to have it all the time when I ran along the Danube. It was there pretty much daily. That was until I realised I could turn it off. And when I did, it changed my entire experience of that run. At the hub of this is the idea that you can stop fighting. You can stop having that exhausting mental dialogue about whether you're going to make it to the end or not. In most cases, there's no way you're going to quit. So why are you having the battle? Now what I've done is I flick the switch and I tell myself that getting to the finish is inevitable. It doesn't mean it won't hurt anymore, it absolutely will. But if you kind of accept the inevitability about finishing, or the inevitability of what lies ahead, the suffering, and the fact that you'll get through it, it reduces the mental struggle. You know you're going to get to the end. It promotes kind of more mental freedom and it lifts the weight. It's quite a powerful thing to do. Now number 3 is to drop the targets. More recently, when I'm heading out for a run, particularly runs where the training goal is essentially low heart rate and just getting time on feet, I have an idea in my mind of how long or how far I want to run, but I'll also tell myself that if I'm getting bored or I'm struggling, I can stop. This instantly relieves the pressure, know that I can go home, I'm free to enjoy the run more without worrying if I've done enough. Now often what will happen is I'll end up running further and enjoying the whole thing more. Number 4, cover your watch and run on feel. I've become a massive convert to ignoring my watch and tuning into how my body feels, in training and in racing. It's not that data isn't important, I track all my runs and I use the data to guide me, but once you're moving based on how you feel, keeping that engine purring below the blowout line, it's amazing how liberating it can be. Again, I use this more when I'm on long, slow runs, but I've used feel to pace races as well. I did it at the Comrades to get my Bill Rowan medal, on a tricky course, one that's very difficult to manage intensity, and I believe it really works. Now why? Well, for me I think the run becomes more about how you feel, not what your ego via your watch says you should be running. If you want to explore running on feel further, there's a couple of videos on the channel as well that I've made with some tips and more info about how to do it and why it might be a good thing for you to try. Now number 5 is to run walk. Once you enter the world of ultra, you realise that the not so secret weapon to covering long distance and moving for long hours is using run walk strategies. All mid-pack runners use it, even some of the elites do as well. And basically what this is about is taking tactical walking breaks that can help you manage the overall intensity It'll stop you blowing up and means you can go for longer. Walking instead of standing still means you're still covering distance, and you can use these moments also to take food on board, which you need. It can be hard when you're moving at higher intensities. It's also smart to take walking breaks on sections where it's going to cost you more energy, potentially do more muscle damage to run than you'll get back in the progress you make. It's disproportionately costly. Plus it leaves you with more to give when things then eventually get more runnable. Once you realise you've got this go-to temporary reset button, it's a pretty powerful tool for running further for longer. The other thing you can do is also plan your strategy. So when I did my first 100 miler, I wanted to cover 5 miles an hour, so I ran 4 and walked 1, and it helps keep the momentum. It's quite nice knowing that you're always only 4 miles from a bit of a breather as well. Boy, have I had to dig in today. This has been, I mean, I keep saying it about each day, but this one was even harder in many respects than any of them that have gone so far. With about 17 miles to go, I was on my ass, basically on my knees, and I had to work so hard. You know, and it got me thinking on this journey. Every day I have this sort of inner turmoil in my head. Can I do it? I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I haven't got it. It's too long. It's too far. It's too hot. It's too this. It's too that. And every day so far I've found a way. I'll just keep finding a different way. I don't know whether I'm using the same methods or it's different methods, or in the moment I just find something. Whether it's like sitting for 2 minutes in the shade like I did back there, or I don't know, just drinking juice that comes to mind when you pop into a shop, or just, I don't know, just finding any way or any way at all to get it done. And today is a big day for me, really, in that sense. We've been out here now for nearly 8.5 hours to do 31 miles, but on the terrain, in the heat, with the dogs and all the other logisticals, it makes for a very long day. Now, one of the things I tell myself when I know I've got a long road ahead of me is to move sensible, steady, controlled from the very start. No heroics, just controlled, consistent movement. Moving with this consistency helps to create a sense of momentum that's really psychologically crucial. Now, it won't stop whatever you're doing hurting, particularly when you're deep into a longer run, but it will create a strong sense of how long it will take to do what lies ahead and how much you'll need to give for each section. If you're doing it right, you'll get a feeling that even though it's not comfortable, you can keep moving as you are almost indefinitely. Now, another mantra I used during the Danube was, I'm strong enough and I have everything I need. It was a great way to reduce some of the anxiety about being able to cope with whatever lay ahead on those days. I'd almost run through a checklist. Have I got food? Have I got water? Are my legs moving? If so, I'm strong enough and I have everything I need to keep moving towards that inevitable finish line. So number 8, no negotiations. When you've already run 30 marathons in 30 days, how on earth do you get up to go again? The answer is you avoid negotiating with yourself. You don't give yourself the option. Along the Danube, for the best part of 2 months, I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and always be ready to start running at 6 a.m. This was a non-negotiable. When the alarm went off, I got out of bed straight away. I turned the lights on. I got active in my room, straight into my morning process. I never allowed myself to enter a negotiation like just have 5 more minutes in bed. That way is a nightmare. Often within 10 minutes of being up, I was fully awake, following the exact same steps to prepare as I'd done every other day. And that process, I think, was a bit like my kind of lazy river. Once I was following it, there was no going back. Number 9, action stifles fear. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. And what's more, all the fear you might have about the run ahead, whether that's 2 miles or a marathon, will melt away once you start moving, and you're moving in that moment. You're doing what you know how to do best. It's normal to get pre-run fears and feelings of anxiety. I had them every single morning on the Danube. It's actually part of it. You probably need them. Don't believe them. They're a trick that your mind is playing on you to try and get you to sit your ass back down. Don't. Now, number 10, My advice is to take on the storm. I think another important aspect of all of this is accepting you're in for a battle and embracing that. I always reference Forrest Gump here, nothing to do with Gump's Run Across America, but the scene that jumps out to me is that scene when Lieutenant Dan is up the mast shouting, "You'll never take this ship!" into the storm, and actually looking like he's having a great time in difficult conditions. Sometimes I try and channel that kind of energy. It's kind of like saying, is this all you've got to whatever it is that you're battling? And I find that throwing yourself headlong into the struggle somehow makes it more manageable, more fun. You're taking it almost with a bit of humour, but you're sort of choosing to relish the battle rather than be a victim of it, whatever comes your way. So there's a few of my tips and tricks I use for building a bit of mental resilience to run further or to push your limits. I hope they've been helpful. And I'd love to hear your tips, tricks and mental tools that you use to keep running. What gets you out of the door in the morning? What helps you keep running those extra yards when you don't really want to necessarily? Let me know in the comments below. If you found these useful, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and perhaps share this with other runners who you think might enjoy it too. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of content. But above all, enjoy your running and keep chasing down those goals. Happy running, everyone. I'll see you again soon.